This is our CAD files, the steel one converted to AutoCAD, and the skylight wireframe has been added to the file. You can kind of see it here on the side. I just brought it in, copied it, and I'm going to paste it so that it will go back in this spot. But I had already done that. I just have this little thing here as an illustration. So what we were trying to check was this block indicates the skylight support connection. And the first one below it is a shim that's in the drawings, and then below it would be subsequent shims. The green one was okay. Yellow is we got to shim a little bit, and after that they change colors a little bit each time. You can see there's green, yellow, orange, red, purple. Orange, probably still okay. Red and purple, starting to see a problem. Or if we're not seeing any shim at all, then there's a problem. So this is just a visual way to check and to kind of bridge the gap between the two softwares, because the steel's modeled with one software, they're dealing with solids. They're not doing point-to-point and lines and vectors like I'm doing in AutoCAD. So it's been difficult to compare it precisely. So let's take a little tour. This is our first one, and we're seeing a green shim. That looks just about perfect, but that's where I snapped it on. First one down, little hint of the yellow, just like before. Same thing here. So it's looking like we're in pretty good shape for that first row. When we come out to the eyebrow, it appears it's doing the same thing. I think this tube is sort of rolled to where it's not in the same plane as that one. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem, but as you can see, it's maybe a 16th here and 0 here. The clip can tip a little bit, or maybe that's going to get ground and evened out as they do the welding. I don't know. It's a little hard to see it. That's a pretty... It's mostly on the edge tube, so I think that'll be okay, and then there'll be weld in here. And if the welder kind of smooths all the tops out, hopefully that'll be okay. You would want it to be a smooth surface. The clip can pivot slightly, not a lot, but some, to help make that work out a little bit cleaner. But you can see there's the colored shims underneath that we're not needing. We're just seeing the one green one. It gets a little fuzzy over here, but that's the radiuses kind of falling away. And same thing there. And then that's at the center. So these look close if everything's fabricated perfectly and installed perfectly. This one, it's a little bit in. You know, we're not seeing the yellow, it's there, but we're not seeing it. Same thing here. Let me just click that. Let's try it different. Yeah, that's not so helpful. Let's go back to... I think that's still in the ballpark. We're not losing a lot of that shim. And here we're back up and we've got the yellow. So there's something going on here, but probably not enough to worry about. Here we're back like the first one. That's a little bit different. Oop. Here. A little hint of the yellow at the radius, just a little bit on the straight. That looks good. Looks good. It jumps around with the two different files because it's a pretty big file for AutoCAD. So now we're going to be down to our fifth arch, and again we're a little bit into the steel. The steel's up compared to the skylight position, but not a lot. So it looks like 3 and 5 have that going on. And then down at the sill it looks just like the other one. When we go to the 6th, that's higher. And now we're back to seeing a little bit more of the yellow. Not quite as much, still a little bit high for the steel, but we're talking 1/16 of an inch. Again, it's into the clip. This would be the every other one that isn't as good. And then we get a little bit more of the shim visible there. So that's down to this one. You can see the graphics are fighting kind of hard. This is our plum one, and that was good. This one's a little off, good, a little off. Pretty close, not as good as before, and then a little bit off. So the ones with the welded joint are consistently just a hair higher than the others, and this one came out pretty much like that, with some concern about how the planar fit of this eyebrow fits with these. So now let's go to these last ones and see if this looks like our typical with a hint of yellow shim. It's looking pretty good. That's looking okay. It looks kind of pretty centered on the steel tube. So that's looking okay again. And then we're to the every other one where the steel's just a little bit higher than the other relative to our theoretical torus that we're all working to. And so I'm thinking those are close enough. Maybe it would be a 3/16 shim there instead of a quarter, maybe an eighth. And then our last straight one, we've got that yellow shim again. Just a hint of it. This one's a little higher than the other good ones, but it's still in the ballpark. And then we got the eyebrow on the low end. So at the center, we're looking okay. We got the right height. First one down's looking okay. Same green shim again, a little bit of yellow there. Depends on the welding. The next one we got maybe half a shim, which that'll be okay. And then we're going to get the last two, and we're down to maybe 0 shim here, maybe just a little bit. And then the one on the corner, we've lost all the shim, and the clip's a little bit into the steel, which would still be okay. The shim's not needed other than to take up a little space. And it's right there. It's a tight fit with the narrow steel. There isn't anything we can do about that. It's not centered on the tube. I think some of these at the bottom, there's an odd miter in here, and I think this tube has pulled in tighter. There's something funny because this is not centered on the tube. It's off a little bit. And there isn't anything I can do about that because the skylight has to follow the faceted torus, and these are hard steel tubes to bend. You know, it's rolled, but I don't think this is. I don't know what it's doing, to be honest. I can't quite explain it. It might be that this is made to be curved and that this end and this end end up where they are, and then they took that same section and put it, and when they cut it back, it's actually walking in a little bit because it's at the middle of this. but those are odd bends to make because they're trying to follow two different arcs, more or less. These blue members are segmented, so they're going point to point. The blue ones going this way are rolled arches, so they're laying in a plane and they're just tipped to go. This edge member over here is tipped and then trying to roll around the curve. So it's got a certain bow inward as it's got an arc going up. And my guess is that what's happened is here, that bow that's got to be in the middle of this is getting cut off, which makes it walk in on the skylight connection. And the skylight is segmented to go point to point, so we don't get that same bowing. We can kind of hold that same line. The steel guy might want to verify that. There isn't anything I can do with the skylight to make this come out different because we're sort of locked in by the geometry. The glass points are following the L curve. I think the steel's following the L curve as well. My earlier comments, I didn't have a time to really think about it. I am trying to have someone else take the .ifc wireframe and put that in the SolidWorks if we can, as another check, just to make sure that what we're seeing here isn't a glitch in the AutoCAD conversion. I should have that in a day or two just to make sure. But this video was just meant to kind of illustrate that in general, things match up pretty good. So theoretically, we're headed to the right spots. We can kind of check if they look centered here. And that looks pretty even to me. I'm just going to spot check them real quick. But it looks to me like our supports are centered, like they should be. And I've only done one half of the frame because it is symmetrical, just to keep the file size down. So hopefully this video answers the question everybody's been asking. It's not SuperSky's job to approve the steel. It's our job to follow the architect's geometry, and he lays it out pretty clearly what he wants the glass to do, and we've done that. I think the steel guys have followed it pretty closely as well. I'm not the approver. That's my opinion. You guys really should have the design team approve it. And I think they're able to do that. This video might help a little bit. And I think there's a bowing of this part that I don't know if this was a straight piece of tube, if that would get rid of it and let that breathe out that little 1/4 inch. There isn't anything I can adjust in the skylight to better match this. Because if I move the skylight, I lose the line of the finished product, which is the glass. Wish I could see that. I'm just grasping at straws for that. There's something that's pulled this corner in towards the skylight. It's narrowed the corner a very small amount. You can see that facet in the radius of the tube, and we're just a little bit here and the full facet there. It should be 50-50 like it was everywhere else. You can sort of see how it lines up here. So that's the difference there. So we're 1/8 of an inch out. The steel's pulled in 1/8 of an inch. I can't explain it. That's all I'm seeing. I think mine is easier to build as a model because it's lines and vectors. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, look what I did. It's easier to do the wireframe for the glass and the way we construct the glass has to follow that geometry, or we lose the planar surface to support the glass. If I start playing with this, I start warping the glass, which then will stress it, which we can't have. So it looks pretty well matched up, but again, it's not for Super Sky to approve the steel. This is just my comments, and it looks pretty close. And I will have a second check based on a SolidWorks model in a few days, and hopefully that with the IFIC file, if it works. It doesn't always work in SolidWorks. Then we'll follow up with that. But again, that's just our review. It's not an approval. It's not for us to approve or not approve. I hope that helps with everybody to have a visual as to how things are matching up.